Let me tell you something that can save your peace, protect your dreams, and secure your future. Not everything you know, feel, or dream about is meant to be shared, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to me carefully today, because I'm not just here to talk. I'm here to wake something up in you. In a world obsessed with oversharing, where people post their meals, moods, and moves online, we've forgotten the power of privacy. Today, I'm going to tell you the 5 things you should never share with anyone, not even your closest friends. Why? Because when you give away too much, you risk losing your focus, your energy, and sometimes your destiny. So if you're ready to protect your peace, guard your goals, and master your silence, then lean in. Because what I'm about to share might just change the way you speak forever. Never share your next move soon. Plans need protection. Dreams die early when they are exposed too quickly. Never share your income or finances. Money brings envy. Privacy keeps you powerful. Never share your family problems. Publicly protect your people. The world doesn't need access to your pain. Never share your good deeds for praise. Real kindness doesn't need an audience. Never share your weaknesses with just anyone. Not everyone who listens wants to help. Some want to use it against you. Success grows in silence. Let your results speak louder than your announcements. Oversharing invites overshadowing. People may copy, compete, or even corrupt what you've started. Privacy is power. The less they know, the less they can control. Trust is earned, not assumed. Even a smile can hide a secret agenda. Peace comes from protection. When you protect your inner world, your outer world becomes unshakable. Let me talk to you today like a real one, not like a preacher, not like a teacher, but like someone who's been through enough to know the truth. Because one of the hardest lessons you will ever learn in this life is this: you don't have to tell everybody everything, especially when it comes to your next move. See, everybody wants to be seen these days. Everybody wants to prove something. Social media got us all thinking that if we don't announce it, it's not happening. If we don't post it, it's not real. If we don't tell people our goals, then somehow we're falling behind. But that's a lie. That's a trap. That's the very thing that kills more dreams than failure ever will. Exposure too soon. Let me tell you something. A seed grows in silence. You don't hear the tree sprouting under the ground. You don't hear the roots digging deep. But one day you walk outside and there it is, a full-grown tree, strong, unshakable, full of life. That's what your goals are supposed to be like. Quietly developing in the background. Privately maturing in the soil of your discipline. Because when you speak too early, when you announce before you build, you open the door to doubt, distraction, and destruction. Not everyone who hears your vision will understand it, and most won't support it. Some will pretend to clap while secretly hoping you fall. Some will take your idea and run faster than you. Some will say something so small, so doubtful that it plants fear in you instead of faith. And let me tell you, once fear gets in your head, it slows down your feet. Now you're questioning the thing you were once sure about. Now you're hesitating where you were once running, all because you opened your mouth too soon. Silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. Some of the greatest moves I've made in my life, I made them in private. I didn't ask for approval. I didn't need applause. I didn't wait for permission. I just moved. And when it came to light, it was already done, already built, already signed, already delivered, because that's how you protect your vision. You build it before you broadcast it. We live in a world where people confuse noise with progress. They think if they talk loud enough, post often enough, make a big enough fuss, but then they must be doing something. But let me tell you something. True elevation is quiet. Real progress is private. Growth makes no sound. A plane makes the noise during takeoff, but once it reaches cruising altitude, it moves in silence. So the next time you get excited about an idea, a goal, a new move, keep it close. Let it simmer. Let it mature. Let it strengthen inside of you. Don't let the pressure to prove yourself rob you of your power. Remember, when you speak too soon, you give people the chance to kill what hasn't even fully lived yet. You give them the opportunity to question what you were just beginning to believe in. Protect your next move like it's sacred, because it is. Speak only when it's time to say, it's done. Not, I'm thinking about it. I'm planning to. Not, one day I will. No. Speak when it's already real, when the foundation is laid, when the mission is unstoppable. That's how you move with purpose, and that's how you keep your peace. And that's how you make sure your next step isn't just loud. It's legendary. Let me break something down to you that might just shift the way you look at life and the way you deal with people. See, there's a reason why some people never find peace, why they always feel surrounded by competition, comparison, or criticism. And most of the time, it comes down to one simple thing: they talk too much about their money, about what they have, what they make, what they're planning to earn. And I'm here to tell you, If you truly want peace, if you truly want power, if you truly want to move different, stop sharing your income or your financial situation with people. Money is a strange thing. It brings out the best and the worst in people. It can build a bridge or it can start a war. And a lot of times, the moment you tell someone what you're making, whether it's a little or a lot, you change the dynamics between you and that person. Maybe you didn't mean to. Maybe you were just being honest. Maybe you were just trying to inspire them. But let me tell you, people don't always receive things the way you intended. And the sad truth is not everyone wants to see you win. When you tell people how much you make, what you bought, or how you're doing financially, you might think you're being transparent, but you could be planting seeds of jealousy, insecurity, and resentment in someone else. You don't even see it happening. You're just sharing. You're being open. But they're sitting there comparing themselves to you, wondering why they're not doing as well, wondering what they're doing wrong. Or worse, they start wishing you would fall off, even if they smile in your face. They stop seeing you as a friend and start seeing you as a threat. Let me take it deeper. You might be the most generous person in the world. You might give to your family, your friends, even strangers. But once people know what you make, they start expecting more from you. Now, your generosity isn't seen as kindness. It's seen as obligation. They start thinking, oh, you got it like that. Then you can help me out too. You'll notice more hands out than hands helping. More people coming to take than coming to support. That's what happens when people know your numbers. And let's not ignore the other side of it. When you're not making much, some folks think it's safe to share when they're struggling. I only make this much. I can't afford that. I'm broke. But even that can work against you. Now, people start defining you by your lack. They start underestimating you, doubting your potential, assuming your worth is tied to your wallet. And that's dangerous because your value has nothing to do with your income. Your identity should never be wrapped up in your paycheck. You are not your salary. You are your spirit, your character, your discipline, your purpose. See, privacy around money isn't about secrecy. It's about protection. You don't owe anyone an explanation of how you're doing financially. You don't have to prove your worth by flashing what you earn. You don't need validation from other people to feel successful. True wealth is quiet. It moves in silence. The richest people you'll ever meet, most of them don't even talk about money. They're too busy building it, protecting it, growing it. Because real wealth isn't loud. It's secure. So if you're getting blessed, if you're climbing, if you're making moves, clap for yourself in private. Thank God in your quiet time, share wisdom, not numbers. Inspire through your actions, not your account balance. And if you're struggling, don't speak defeat over your life. Don't let anyone box you in based on the moment. You're not broke. You're in process, you're building. And builders don't have time to explain what's still under construction. The world doesn't need to know what's in your bank. What they need to see is your integrity, effort, your consistency, your heart. Because in the end, money might open doors, but character is what keeps you in the room. So move with wisdom, move with humility. And remember this, your income is not a conversation piece. It's a private matter. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is smile and say nothing at all. Let me tell you something that might sound old-fashioned in a world that loves to spill everything online, but it's a timeless truth that will never stop being relevant. Not every problem in your family needs to be shared with outsiders. I don't care how close you are to your friends, how big your social media following is, or how frustrated you feel. When it comes to your family issues, keep that business inside the house. Because once you let the world in, you lose control over the story, and you give people power over something they were never meant to touch. See, when you start sharing your family's flaws, your parents' struggles, your siblings' mistakes, your partner's imperfections, you might feel like you're just venting. You might think you're just being real. But what you're really doing is exposing something sacred. You're pulling open the curtain on people who are still trying to heal, still trying to grow, still trying to figure things out. And the minute you let someone else in on that, you invite opinions, judgment, gossip, and criticism into a space that was never built to hold that weight. What most people don't realize is that family problems are not just temporary storms. They're deeply emotional, sensitive, and often tied to years of history and love. You might be mad at your brother today, but tomorrow you'll forgive him. You might feel disrespected by your spouse this week, but next week you'll work it out. The problem is when you tell someone else, when you share that anger or pain with people who aren't part of the process, they don't forgive the way you do. They don't forget. They don't move on. They'll still be holding a grudge against someone you've already made peace with, And don't get it twisted, not everyone listening to your story is doing it out of love. Some people listen just to feed their curiosity. Others listen to feel better about their own messy lives. And some people will take that information and twist it, exaggerate it, pass it around like it's entertainment. They'll label your family, disrespect your people, and then turn around and act like they were just being concerned. Meanwhile, you're left cleaning up the damage of a moment that never should have left the front door. Let me take it even deeper. When you speak negatively about your family to others, you start shaping your own mindset. The more you complain about them, the more flaws you focus on, the more bitterness you feed. You turn temporary frustration into permanent resentment, and without even realizing it, you distance yourself emotionally from the very people who've been there for you since day one. You start treating them like enemies when really they're human beings trying to do their best just like you. And let's be real here, every family has problems. Every household has history. You are not alone in that. But healing doesn't come from exposing, it comes from working through it. Growth doesn't come from complaining to outsiders, it comes from honest conversations inside the home. You want peace in your family, start by protecting it. Start by covering it in prayer, in patience, in quiet strength, because what's sacred should stay sacred. There's a difference between asking for help and exposing people. If you need wisdom, go to someone who can guide you with maturity and discretion. Go to someone who respects your people and knows how to keep your heart safe. Don't run to anyone who just wants the details. Don't confide in someone who's only there for the drama. Go to people who know how to hold your pain without weaponizing it later. And here's the part we don't like to talk about. Sometimes when you constantly speak negatively about your family, you become the problem. You become the one spreading poison. You become the one creating division. And when something beautiful finally begins to heal in your family, you're the one left behind bitter, isolated, and disconnected because you let your emotions speak louder than your loyalty. Protect your home. Protect the people you love, even when it's hard. Speak with wisdom, move with grace, and understand that silence isn't weakness, it's maturity. It's understanding that you don't owe the world a story about everything that hurts. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is protect the people you love, even when they're not perfect. Especially when they're not perfect. Because if you want real peace in your life, start by creating peace in your home, and that begins with your mouth staying shut when your heart is still processing. Don't let temporary emotions create permanent damage. Don't turn your family's healing space into a public courtroom. Love them enough to be silent. Love them enough to protect them. Because at the end of the day, family is not about perfection, it's about protection. And some things are far too sacred to ever be shared. In a world that constantly tells you to show off your good side, highlight your kindness, and seek validation for every good thing you do, I want to give you a truth that's going to sound completely backwards to modern thinking. Not every good deed you do needs to be announced. Not every act of kindness needs a witness. Not every generous moment needs a camera. In fact, the most powerful, life-changing, soul-purifying acts you'll ever perform will probably be the ones nobody ever sees, and that's exactly how it should be. We're living in a time where people do things more for applause than for purpose. They give not from the heart, but from the hope of being seen. They help someone and then rush to their phones to capture it. They bless others, but only if they get credit for it. But I want to ask you something deep. What is your intention? Because when the motive is recognition, the reward is short-lived. But when the motive is pure, the reward is eternal. When you help someone silently, when you give without expecting anything in return, you enter a higher level of humanity. You're not doing it for claps, likes, or admiration. You're doing it because it's right. Because your heart recognizes the pain in someone else and chooses to respond. Not for status, not for performance, but for purpose. That's what true kindness looks like. It doesn't scream, it doesn't boast. It whispers, and then it disappears into the shadows, leaving behind light that no one can trace back to you. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't encourage others to do good. There's value in setting an example. But when your acts of goodness become part of your personal brand, when they become content for your highlight reel, you begin to cross a line where the act becomes more about your image than about the impact. You begin to serve your ego instead of others, and slowly what started as kindness becomes a performance. And here's something to really think about. When you show off your good deeds, you may impress people, sure, but when you keep them private, you impress heaven. You impress the one who sees everything, even what's done in secret. There's a verse that says when you give, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Why? Because sacred things don't need an audience, because the value of what you do is not in who sees it, but in the heart with which you did it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you'll ever do for someone is the thing no one else will ever know about. That bill you paid for someone struggling silently. That encouraging message you sent without ever attaching your name. That support you gave behind the scenes when someone was about to give up. Those are the things that leave fingerprints on someone's life. And nobody needs to know it was you, because the impact was never about you. You see, when you attach your name to every act of goodness, you limit its purity. You feed your ego instead of feeding a soul. But when you step back, when you let the act speak for itself, when you disappear and let the blessing remain, you not only uplift someone, you free yourself. You free yourself from needing validation. You free yourself from needing credit. You become a channel, not a container, a river. You're not a reservoir. You let goodness flow through you, not stop with you. And don't think for a second that your silent goodness goes unnoticed. The universe keeps perfect records. God sees it all. And what's done in secret has a way of returning to you in ways you could never imagine, not through applause, not through trophies, but through peace, through favor, through the kind of joy that fame can't give and pride can't touch. So the next time you feel the need to show the world how generous, kind, or helpful you are, pause. Ask yourself, is this for them or is this for me? Am I helping because I care or because I want to be seen as someone who cares? And if the answer isn't pure, if the motive isn't clean, then step back. Do it in silence. Let your heart do the talking and your hands do the work. Let your character be your signature, not your Instagram post. And understand this, the most beautiful things you'll ever do for others will often be the things you never talk about. Be someone who moves in quiet goodness. Be the type of person whose kindness echoes in lives, not timelines. Let your life be a secret garden of compassion, rich, alive, and full of grace, even if no one ever gets to walk through it but you. Because the most powerful acts of love are never meant to be announced. They're meant to be lived. Let me tell you something that might just protect your future, preserve your dignity, and save you from some unnecessary pain. Stop sharing your weaknesses with just anyone. I know that sounds harsh in a world that preaches vulnerability is strength, and it's okay to open up. And yes, there's truth in that. But there's also wisdom in knowing who's earned the right to hear your truth. There's wisdom in understanding that not everyone who listens is loyal. Not everyone who nods their head while you speak is praying for your healing. Some people are only close enough to get information they can later use as a weapon. When you expose your insecurities, your private battles, your hidden fears to the wrong person, you make yourself emotionally naked in front of someone who might not even care to cover you. You think you're confiding in someone who understands, but they may just be gathering data, and that data, it becomes gossip, it becomes judgment, it becomes twisted versions of your story that you no longer control. You handed someone the script of your struggle, and they walked away to perform it on the stage of rumors. Now, I'm not telling you to become hard or to bottle everything up. That's not strength either. Real strength is not silence. Real strength is discernment. It's the ability to filter who gets access to the softest parts of you. It's about protecting your emotional space. Your vulnerability is a gift. It's sacred. It's not meant to be thrown around like small talk. It's meant to be shared with people who've proven, not just once, but consistently, that they care about your heart and not just your story. Some people will act concerned just to get closer. They'll say all the right things, look you in the eyes, even hug you, only take that same conversation and casually share it in their next group chat. Suddenly, you're not a person anymore. You're a topic, and the same people you thought would your pain with compassion are now holding it with dirty hands, turning it over, examining it, judging it, mocking it, or worse, using it against you when they're upset with you. That's the risk of oversharing with the wrong people. And don't be fooled by familiarity. Just because someone's been in your life a long time doesn't mean they're the right one to trust. Just because someone listens well doesn't mean they love you well. Time doesn't equal loyalty. Proximity doesn't equal safety. You need to look for people who protect your reputation when you're not in the room, who pray for you when you're weak, and who would rather stay silent forever than reveal something you said in confidence. Those are the people who deserve to hear your truth. Even then, you need balance, because here's something you have to understand. Not even the good people in your life can carry all your weight. Sometimes people collapse under the pressure of your vulnerability, not because they want to hurt you, but because they don't know how to help. That's why some battles are meant to be fought in prayer, in solitude, or in the presence of a professional. Your emotional health deserves more than just casual comfort. It deserves wisdom, guidance, and sacred space. You ever notice how some people constantly speak about their weaknesses, hoping to be understood, hoping to be loved more, hoping someone will rescue them. And yet over time, they just feel emptier. That's because they've been scattering their soul in too many places. You can't feel whole when you've handed out your brokenness to the world without direction. You need safe hands and safe spaces, not crowds and claps and careless listeners. And here's the truth. Your weakness does not define you. It's a part of yes, but it's not the totality of who you are. You don't have to make headline of every conversation. You don't have to turn your pain into your personality. There's more to you than what's hurting. There's more to you than what you're struggling with. And when you constantly lead with your weakness, you give people a version of you that may blind them to your strength. So start moving differently. Learn to pause before you share. Ask yourself, why am I telling this person this? Do they have the capacity to hold it? Have they proven to be trustworthy? Do they bring peace to my chaos, or do they just stir it up more? If the answer isn't clear, wait. You're not obligated to explain yourself to anyone. You are allowed to keep parts of yourself private. That's not being fake. That's being wise. At the end of the day, your healing is not a performance. Your struggle is not for public consumption. Your vulnerability is not a marketing strategy. It's a sacred journey, and not everyone deserves a front row seat. So hold your truth close. Share it with caution. Speak with intention. And never, ever forget that just because someone is available doesn't mean they're trustworthy. Choose carefully who gets to see your soul in its rawest form. Because once you give that away, you can't take it back. And the damage from careless hands can take years to undo. Success grows in silence. That's a truth most people won't tell you because we live in a world that's addicted to noise. Everybody's trying to show something, say something, prove something. Social media got folks believing that if they're not constantly talking about their goals, showing off their work, or making noise about what they're building, they're not doing enough. But I'm here to tell you it's the quiet ones you need to watch. It's the ones who are working in silence, grinding behind the scenes, building by piece without announcing every brick. That's where real power lies. That's where real success begins. The most powerful moves you'll ever make won't be the ones you post about. They'll be the ones you make when nobody's watching, when nobody's clapping, when it's just you, your grind, your God, and your vision. That's where your roots grow. That's where your discipline is tested. That's where your character is shaped. See, people get so caught up in being seen that they forget the value of being prepared. They want the spotlight, but they haven't built the foundation. They want the applause, but they haven't earned the credibility. So they shine too soon and then burn out just as fast. You ever notice that the lewdest people are often the ones with the least results? They make the most noise, but when you look close, there's no depth, no consistency, no fruit. That's because noise is easy. Anybody can talk. Anybody post a motivational quote or show you a 10-second clip of them doing something productive. But success, real, sustainable, and deeply rooted success, that takes more than hype. It takes quiet work. It takes long nights, early mornings, sacrifices that nobody sees, decisions that nobody claps for, and focus that doesn't need validation. When you're building something that matters, something that will last, you don't have time to broadcast every move. You're too busy learning, failing, adjusting, getting better. You're not seeking praise. You're seeking progress. You're not chasing trends. You're chasing truth. You're not performing for people. You're performing for purpose. That's the mindset that sets the great apart from the average. That's what separates those who make noise from those who make history. And don't get it twisted. There's nothing wrong with celebrating your wins. There's nothing wrong with sharing your journey. But there's a difference between transparency and dependence. Some people can't move unless they're seen. They can't function unless they're acknowledged. That's not strength. That's insecurity in disguise, because when your motivation depends on people's reaction, your mission becomes fragile. But when you can work silently day after day, step by step, unseen but unwavering, that's when you know you're becoming unstoppable. Success doesn't announce itself in the beginning. It grows slowly, like roots digging deep into the ground. It looks invisible to the outside world, but underneath, there's strength being formed, resilience being built, storms being weathered. And one day, when it's time, you'll rise, but not as someone who just appeared overnight. No, you'll rise as someone who was planted, someone who went through seasons, someone who stayed the course when nobody was looking. And that kind of success, that's the kind that lasts. That's the kind that can't be shaken when pressure comes. There's something sacred about silent seasons. That's where God does his best work. That's where clarity comes. That's where transformation begins. When the world is quiet and the noise dies down and you're left alone with your vision, That's where you discover who you really are. That's where you realize you don't need applause to be valuable. You don't need approval to be chosen. You don't need an audience to be authentic. You just need to be committed to your growth, loyal to your vision, and disciplined enough to keep going even when nobody sees the work you're putting in. So if you're in that season right now where nobody knows what you're working on, where your success hasn't shown itself yet, where it feels like you're invisible, don't despise that. Embrace it. Protect it. Use it. Because that's your preparation ground. That's your development phase. That's the silence before the storm of breakthrough. And when it comes, it won't need an introduction. People will look at you and wonder how you got so far so fast, but they'll never see the silent work that built a foundation. That's okay. They're not supposed to. Move quietly, work faithfully, build consistently. And when it's time to speak, let your results be the loudest thing in the room. Let your success be the proof that your silence was never weakness. It was wisdom. Let your elevation be your explanation. Let the fruit of your labor speak for itself. Because success doesn't need a microphone when it's real. It just needs time, focus, and the kind of quiet work that never stops. Even when no one is clapping,